We don't just watch television, we grow up with it. And in some strange way, it grows up with us. Everyone has that short list of shows that feel less like entertainment and more like emotional autobiography. The ones we inhaled as teenagers, waiting breathlessly for each new episode, recording reruns, rewatching scratched DVDs until the menus burned into our memories. These weren't just series. They were coordinates in the messy, exhilarating map of becoming a person. For me, growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, these were shows like Dawson's Creek, Gilmore Girls, and The OC. Shows that didn't simply fill my time, but shaped my emotional vocabulary before I even realized television had the power to do that. Today's video is a little different. Instead of breaking down one show like I usually do on this channel, I want to explore why the television we watch at different stages of life occupies such distinct emotional terrain, and why shows we discover later, even brilliant ones, often can't carve out the same permanent homes in our hearts. Not because they're lesser, but because we aren't the same anymore. There's something neurologically and emotionally singular about the media we consume in adolescence. Cognitive scientists often describe the teen years as a period of identity consolidation. I like to think of it as the time when our inner world is still wet cement. And every story, every character, every song leaves an imprint that calcifies into who we become later. So when I talk about the OC, Dawson's Creek, Gilmore Girls, and other shows, I'm really talking about versions of myself. Seth Cohen wasn't just a character. He was a blueprint, a prototype for pop culture literate awkwardness that made me feel seen. And if I'm being honest, I had a big crush on him in my teen years. I remember wanting to learn how to skateboard just to inhabit the orbit of someone like him. Meanwhile, Joey Potter's contradictions taught me that longing could be poetic. I vividly remember being a preteen and flipping through an issue of my older sister's YM magazine with Katie Holmes on the cover and thinking, that is the epitome of cool, of who I want to grow up to be like. And Stars Hollow? It wasn't a fictional town to me. It was a utopian emotional climate I secretly measured the real world against. I'd rush home after school just to catch Gilmore Girls reruns on the W network, to spend time with the fun and quirky residents of the town. These shows fused my adolescence in a way later series simply can't, because they were part of the shaping of who I would later become. Essentially, these were the shows that were part of the wet cement. Then there were the shows that we discover later in life. Sometimes they're even from the same era, living parallel to the ones that shaped us, but we encounter them when we're no longer porous in the same way. For me, that show is Everwood. I adore Everwood. In fact, I have an entire 10-part series on this channel about how deeply it moves me. It's textured, literate, emotionally sophisticated, arguably more nuanced than some of the shows I grew up with. If I had watched it as a 16-year-old, it might have rewritten my understanding of family, grief, forgiveness, and quiet resilience. But I didn't. I discovered it and watched it as an adult, and had no knowledge of its existence when it was still airing on TV when I was a teen. All of this is to say, I watched it with a more complete version of myself. Someone whose identity, aesthetic tastes, and emotional reflexes were already largely set. To put it plainly, Everwood spoke to me, but it didn't speak into me. It illuminated, but it didn't imprint. This is the strange paradox of adult TV discovery. The more fully we understand ourselves, the harder it is for a show to become part of our psychological DNA. But there's also a fascinating third category that sits between formative viewing and adult discovery. The shows we didn't watch, but always knew. For me, that show is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Even though I wasn't a weekly viewer when it aired, Buffy existed in my atmosphere, referenced by friends, including one who had an unapologetic crush on Spike, echoed across early 2000s pop culture, and woven into the DNA of almost every teen drama that came after it. Watching Buffy for the first time about 5 years ago didn't feel like discovering something new. It felt like finally reading a book I'd been emotionally assigned in adolescence, but never cracked open. Shows like this inhabit a liminal nostalgia. They didn't raise us, but they haunted the neighborhood. And here's the twist. Buffy might now be my favorite show of all time. And that's coming from someone who has watched every prestige drama of the last 25 years. There's something in it that hits me on two frequencies at once. It resonates with who I am as an adult, while simultaneously tuning into the adolescent version of me I didn't realize was still listening. These types of shows create a hybrid emotional texture, part genuine discovery, part déjà vu. They become portals not to who we were, but to who we were adjacent to, the person we might have become if we had found them at the right moment. It's really easy to dismiss nostalgia as escapism, as an attempt to return to a simpler time. But I think it's something far more profound. Rewatching formative shows isn't about wanting to be a teenager again. It's about reconnecting to the emotional scaffolding we built while we were learning to be ourselves. When I revisit Stars Hollow or Capeside, I'm not clinging to youth. I'm acknowledging the blueprints these stories drafted for me, the ones quietly steering how I communicate, love, grieve, and dream as an adult. Meanwhile, shows like Everwood help me understand who I am now, more reflective, more analytical, more attuned to nuance. And shows like Buffy let me access an alternate emotional timeline, the version of me who might have grown up alongside it if life had gone just a little bit differently. Television isn't just a medium we consume. It's a medium that remembers us, just as we remember it. In the end, the shows we grow up with and the shows we grow into aren't competitors. They're collaborators in our autobiographies. Formative shows become emotional origin stories, adult discoveries become intellectual and aesthetic partners, and cultural adjacent shows become retroactive memories, filling in the atmosphere of who we once were or might have been. Each category reveals a different version of us. Television doesn't hold the same meaning at every age, because we aren't the same at every age. And that's the real beauty of returning to old shows or discovering new ones. They help us trace the shape of our own becoming. If any of what I've been droning on about resonates with you, let me know in the comments and tell me which shows filled these emotional spaces in your life. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the Hangout for more essays and deep dives into the classic naughties shows we still can't stop thinking about. I would really love to hit 200 subscribers in 2026. See you next time on the Hangout.